This is Pastor's Perspective. We're here every Monday through Friday providing answers on a variety of topics, including the Bible, end times, other religions, and the family. Call right now with your question at 1-888-564-6173. That's 888-564-6173. You can also post your question at facebook.com/Pastor's Perspective. And now here again is your host, Brian Perez.
Well, hello there. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Pastor's Perspective program, whether on the radio or on Facebook or on YouTube. Here we are on this Tuesday afternoon, and we are ready to answer some questions. 888-564-6173 is the number to call to talk to either Pastor Brian Brodersen, Pastor Tony Clark, or Dr. Bobby Conway. Again, 888-564-6173. Fellas, how you doing today? Did you have a nice Easter celebration?
You bet.
We had a fantastic weekend, didn't we?
Yes,
Brian?
we did. Yes, we did.
It was amazing. Now, we were asking Bobby before the program how his went, and we were having a hard time reading his lips. So, but he seemed excited, so it seemed like it must have gone well.
Yes.
Did it go well, Bobby?
Yes. Yeah, well, we had a Good Friday service that went great. We weren't allowed to meet in the building for Easter Sunday.
Oh.
So we were sure to, have Jesus resurrected by the end of the Good Friday service in lieu of the fact we couldn't meet Sunday. That was important to get him out of the grave.
Awesome. Because of the rental space, they had something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's the way it goes when you're doing that, renting. Getting started like that. Yeah. So, Tony, did you guys have, we had the most people in church that we've had in a year.
Mm-hmm.
So that was beautiful.
Yes.
And did you guys have a similar kind of a thing?
Yeah, we had same thing, packed out, Good Friday service, and then, of course, packed out on Easter, and we saw so many people. That was their first time back in a year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it was good.
Attendance was up 1,000%. I mean, it was just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I had a number of people that said, I haven't been to church in a year. Mm-hmm. And so this was their, reentry back in, which was really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully now that the barrier's been broken, hopefully people next time. A number of people have told me over the year, though, one of the things, I mean, some people have been concerned for their health and, the fear factor and all that for sure. But a number of people have just said, well, it just got so comfortable, it just got so easy, just sitting in my PJs and, watching online. And it's like, okay, well, that season is over. Let's move back into real life. Yeah.
Yeah, there is something comfortable about staying home Sunday morning in your PJs, drinking your coffee. So we've made some changes at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. You can now bring your coffee into the sanctuary. Yeah. Don't come in pajamas, though. But I mean,
well, not yet. I mean, we're talking
maybe
about
we'll make
the
that
pajama
change
thing,
too,
but
not yet.
Yeah.
I'm trying to decide whether I want to come in my pajamas, and if I decide, then
preach in your PJs.
Yeah, preach in your PJs.
Hey, I like that alliteration.
But as Brian said, we do have a revolutionary action in that we are allowing coffee into the sanctuary.
But isn't that going to ruin the carpet? Sorry, I sound like I did 50 years ago.
Yeah,
in the
it
hippie
probably
days.
is not going to be the best for the carpet, but we're not there for the carpet. So we're there for the gospel and for, people being able to just enjoy, being together and stuff. So, yeah, man. And that was the thing this weekend. It was just such a sweetness. I think everybody just missed being together and appreciated so much from Friday right on through, sunrise. For you guys, we do, we normally do a sunrise service every year, and we used to do it at the amphitheater down in Irvine, California. Then we did it for a number of years at the local amphitheater here in Costa Mesa. And then maybe like 5 years ago, we decided to move it back onto our campus. So we did it on the field. We have a sports field, and we did it on the sports field. And this year, we did it in this space that we are now calling the Terrace, but it ended up being an amazing space.
It was. I got there early enough where I could see how the seats and everything were, and I just thought, oh my goodness, this is amazing. It's not what I had pictured in my mind. I thought because of the grassy area there, I thought all the seats were going to be there, but it was just really
So we actually, in the process of this weekend, we discovered a whole new space to do outdoor events that's better. It's better than our field. It has a lot of intimacy, and it's enclosed, so we're not going to be disturbing any of the neighbors with music and stuff. So, we're just excited about
that's great.
The next event coming up. And as a matter of fact, the next event coming up on the Terrace is coming up this Sunday with our baptisms. So we're going to be doing baptisms after first and second service. So I just found this out as well, Brian. I was thinking I was going to be gone because I'm leaving Sunday to go to Chicago. But I was thinking that my flight was way earlier, so I planned like, okay, I'm not going to be able to preach, so Char's going to preach, and I just found out like, no, my flight leaves at
PM,
late in the
not AM.
afternoon, and the whole time I was thinking I was flying out of LAX, and now they told me, no, you're flying out of Santa Ana, which is 10 minutes away. I'm like, how come I didn't know this? So what that means is I'm not going to go back and say, no, Char, you've already prepared your message, but don't preach because I'm going to preach now.
Yeah.
Right.
But what I'm
You're
going to do...
just going to preach his message instead.
No, what I'm going to do is what I've never done is I've never done one of the baptisms because I'm always preaching. So, the other guys do the baptism. So I am actually going to baptize on Sunday morning.
Very good.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that.
So the baptisms are after each service on Sunday morning. So that's the 8:30 and the 11. So come to the service and then stick around for the baptism. If you've never been baptized, this is your opportunity to do it. If you have been baptized, just come out and encourage these people that are getting baptized.
Yeah, and if you want to be baptized, it would be nice if you could go to cccm.com and go under the events portion. There's a thing that says baptism. Just click on that a couple of times and you can register. You don't have to do that, but it will just help us have an idea of who's coming. And so, but even if you don't register, it's fine. We're going to baptize you anyway.
We won't turn you away. All right, 888-564-6173 is the number to call to ask your questions, and we'll get to some of our calls in just a little bit. First, let's read a few, at least one that was sent in online. This one is from Bubba in Kentucky, who writes, is it just me, or does it frost anyone else's behind that Scientology uses a cross on their literature and their buildings, yet don't believe in God, Jesus, or the Bible? I think it's a ploy to pull in those who are questioning life, thinking they might have something to do with, thinking the Scientology church has something to do with Christ. Why does Scientology use the cross as a symbol if they don't believe in the cross? Brian, what would you say?
I would say for the exact reason that this person suspects they use it to, to draw people unwittingly, people who, are looking for help and thinking, oh, well, that must be a church. I didn't know they used a cross. Did you guys know that?
No.
I didn't.
No, I didn't know that. Unless it's something that's new.
Maybe it looks like a cross.
I'm not sure. But I know one thing is that a lot of times groups like this will use crosses or similar Christian symbols in order for them to qualify for 501c3 status. And so they will stick Christian symbols and things on there so they can fall under the Christian banner and then get that sort of tax exempt status.
Oh, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah. So what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, no, go ahead. I just did that research as well, so feel free to read that.
I was just going to, it says the cross closely resembles the Christian cross, but differs from it with the addition of 4 diagonal rays between the conventional horizontal and vertical arms. But so it's a cross with an X through it almost is what it looks like.
Yeah, but the question would be, why even have a cross at all? But I think the reason is to draw people in. I think that is. I mean, look, the Scientology. I cannot believe anybody on the face of the earth actually falls for Scientology. I mean, it is literally, it's like science fiction turned into religion, and it's a full-on money scam. But well, it doesn't stop people from getting into it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, a lot of Hollywood, a whole lot of those in Hollywood are, Tom Cruise was always the poster boy for them. They have a huge compound, a campus in Hollywood. And so you're right. There's a lot of money that flows through your Scientology.
Yeah, people have gone into serious debt because it's one thing for a Hollywood movie star to pay all the fees and everything, but people have taken out mortgages on their homes, racked up their credit card debt. Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
Bobby, did you ever do anything on Scientology with One Minute Apologist?
Yes. We've got some videos that I've done on Scientology.
Give us a quick rundown of what it is and why people should,
what they believe.
Yeah, why people should stay as far away from it as they can.
I mean, basically, the Scientologists, L. Ron Hubbard writes his book Dianetics, and he was heavily influenced by sci-fi, and he ended up, articulating a belief that we are Thetans, and that we existed as souls before we took on these human bodies. And basically what Scientologists do is they're trying to help you to get clear. So to get clear, you need to recognize that you have these enneagrams that need to be cleared up. And so you're attached to an e-meter, and the idea is to bring you into consciousness with your pre-soul self, like before you existed here as a humanoid. And so you're trying to come in contact with the damage that's been done to you, that's crippling to you. And so basically the e-meter goes off, you pay these high fees, and people believe they're experiencing a greater sense of liberation and consciousness as they become aware of these enneagrams that are holding them back.
Yeah, and also, they like to use, if they will throw or use anything biblical, Jeremiah 1:5, before I called you, I knew you before you were in your mother's womb. And so a little bit of Mormonism is in there as well, getting you in touch with your pre-existing self, soul, kind of like. And so, so what the great doctor said is definitely true. Something to run from, definitely.
Right. Okay.
Okay, Bubba, thank you for sending in your question there from Kentucky. And now we'll go to the phones. 888-564-6173 is the number. And we'll start in California with Christian. Welcome to Pastor's Perspective. You are on with Brian Brodersen, Bobby Conway, and Tony Clark.
Hi. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. I just want to say to Bobby Conway, too, that his story and his inspiration and things that he said before is something that has brought me to Christ. So thank you so much for openly sharing your story and being an inspiration.
That's awesome for sharing that. That's awesome.
Other people to God. I want to say that I'm a new believer, and my question is, how do we know that we are conscious in heaven after death? Because Lazarus did not speak of heaven or any place after Jesus raised him from the dead.
All right, Bobby, what would you tell Christian about Lazarus?
Lazarus is an interesting story. I mean, those are questions that I would want to know. Like, obviously, we don't believe in soul sleep. It seems as if Lazarus, would have been absent from the body, so to speak, to be present with the Lord. I would love to have heard some of his, experience being in the presence of the Lord. So the Bible doesn't go into that. So you could make the case that perhaps there was this special exception where maybe he was in a state of soul sleep during those 4 days for the sole purpose of not blowing up the rest of his earthly existence when he came back to life again. Because can you imagine having been 4 days in heaven and then thinking, my goodness, now I got to live on earth. But nevertheless, it could also be great motivation to tell other people about heaven. So you could make that case, but we'd be reading in the scripture the most, concurrent with the word of God would be that to be absent from the bodies, be present with the Lord, would be to assume that Lazarus was indeed in the very presence of God, but we just don't have the stories. I wonder what the rest of Lazarus' life was like as a person. I mean, can you imagine sitting across the table with meals with people and going, I died 4 days and here's what I saw. Like why didn't Lazarus write a book about heaven for us? Or why don't we have the book of Lazarus? Like there's so many questions that my brain could go to thinking about as you ask me this. So frankly, I just don't know, but I do know that we're in a conscious state. And we can find a bunch of other proof texts to show that when we die, that we are in a conscious state.
Well, I think it's interesting too, because you think about Paul. Paul has an experience that he actually talks about, but he doesn't say too much about it. Mm-hmm. He says he was either in the body or out of the body. He didn't know he was alive or dead. He didn't really know, but he was caught up to the third heaven or up to the place of God's presence. And then he says, in 2 Corinthians 12 there, he says he saw things that would be unlawful to try to put in human language. Yeah. So Paul, I mean, he's, Lazarus is not an apostle. Lazarus never says anything in the Bible. There's not a single word that it's recorded for us that Lazarus ever uttered. But Paul does. He's a preacher, but he doesn't say anything about it. So I think that it shouldn't be surprising then that Lazarus doesn't say anything, or there's no record of him. I mean he probably said something, but we just have no record of it.
How could you not say something? But Tony, anything to add?
2 Corinthians 5:8, it does say, absent from the body is present with the Lord. And Paul does describe in 2 Corinthians 12 his time that he went to heaven. Many believe that it was right after the time he was stoned in Lystra, he describes what happened in 2 Corinthians 12. Also, we know from Revelation 6, verses 9 through 11, it says that we saw the souls under the altar who had died. And they said, how long, O Lord, before you avenge us, that sort of thing. And so it says the souls that were, who had died, they were under the altar. And so we do have some examples of those who've died and they were definitely went to be with the Lord. Yes, and you're right. Paul said, he saw some things and heard some things that it's not even lawful. We will say today, Webster hasn't even come up with words to describe what I saw and what I heard. So it always amazes me when people say I went to heaven and they write books about it. When Paul said I was there and he couldn't even express what he saw. So, those are just some examples of people who have died going on to be with the presence of the Lord.
And I just wanted to make a clarification. When I was talking about Scientology, since we're kind of talking about the the soul before we exist, and now we're talking about, consciousness after the fact, I said Enneagram, and I found myself thinking Enneagram, that's the personality. It's engrams, not Enneagrams. So you can see how I made that faux pas. So you're trying to get rid of these. You're trying to get rid of these engrams, basically, that the auditor hookship to an e-meter works out of you. So anyway, I like precision, and so I could see somebody contacting me saying, "You said Enneagram, that's a personality type."
Yeah,
and so I just wanted to clarify.
Plus, a lot of Christians that use the Enneagram were freaking out, thinking, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know I was into Scientology."
Yes.
Maybe I should have kept it that way then.
So, Christian, does that answer your question about heaven?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Gina and Charlie in Charlie's Chop Shop, Bell, California. They're the ones who introduced me to Christ and actually gave me motivation to get baptized that Sunday.
That is awesome.
Amen.
That's awesome, bud.
Christian, thanks for calling.
Yeah,
that's so
awesome.
good to hear from you. Wow.
For sure.
Always good to give shout outs to the ones who drew us closer to the
I was thinking about this today. I was just thinking, I ran into this guy and, he kind of just does his thing out just sharing Jesus wherever he can, and in ways that I would never do what he does. And yet at the same time, I thought, man, Lord, you just have all kinds of people out there doing all kinds of stuff, because there are all kinds of people that need to connect with people that they're going to relate to somehow, know? And I think sometimes, it's easy to get into the mentality that, if people don't do things exactly the way we do or something like that, then, I don't care about that, or I don't know about that, or we want to dismiss it. And you just got to realize, God is very, very creative, and he makes all kinds of different people, and he uses them because of their differences and in different ways. So, he's talking about a chop shop. That's a bike shop, like a chopper. Mm-hmm. And they shared the Lord with them there. Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great, man. Evangelism going on from the chop shop. That's what you want.
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
Christian, great hearing from you. Thanks for calling us today on Pastor's Perspective at 888-564-6173. Answering your questions today are Brian Brodersen, the senior pastor of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California, author and apologist Dr. Bobby Conway from the 1 Minute Apologist channel on YouTube, and Tony Clark, the pastor of Calvary Chapel, Newport News in Virginia. The number again is 888-564-6173. Next, we're going to say hello to Adele. I was hoping to hear from someone like you today, Adele. Welcome to the program.
Clever.
Thank you so much for having me, pastors. I get that all the time. Thank you so much for having me. I had a question about our pets, and I just wanted to see if we'll see them in heaven at all when we all get there.
All right, Tony, what do you think?
Yeah, this question comes up a lot because, people's pets are like their family members and stuff. And so, I don't see why not. There's not a verse that we can point to, but we know that there are animals in heaven. They're coming back on horses and things like that. And the Bible talks about in Proverbs 10 verse 12 about being kind to our pets and being kind to animals, and so 12:10, and so I don't see why not. There's not a verse we can point to and say all dogs go to heaven. We don't have that, but I don't see why not, and that's just my humble opinion on it.
Okay, Brian, any
Thank you.
insight?
I share the same humble opinion as Tony. But I want to say cats, too, because Tony just said dogs. I don't know if that was intentional or not. But
Cats are mean.
I was going to say, some people are saying that cats will not be in there.
Yeah, I know. Cats get a bad rap, but I've known some cool cats. So I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring for the cat.
That's important, Brian. I'm glad you did that.
Yes, thank you. Because there are cat lovers that grieve deeply when their cats die. So we want to give them hope as well, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
888-564-6173. Adele, thank you for your question. Next, we're going to go to Lauren in Huntington Beach, California. Welcome to the program, Lauren.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
You bet.
I have a question about the Assyrian people. I'm doing a Bible study, and in the book of Nahum, chapter 1, verse 14, it says that the Lord says concerning the Assyrians in Nineveh, you will have no more children to carry on your name. So who are the Assyrian people today that we read about in the news?
Well, we mostly read about Syrians, not Assyrians, but there are Assyrians still today. So I think the idea there, remember, Assyria at the time was an empire. It was the empire that it was, ruled that whole region. So I think what God is just declaring is that they're going to become insignificant. They're no longer going to have that kind of power and reign as they'd had in the past. But I do know some Assyrians today. Assyria would be in northern, northwestern Iraq would be where Assyria was.
What do you think, Lauren?
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, because I was confused because if he had wiped them out, so to speak, because of how awful they were, I thought, okay, well, then they can't be around today. So it's not. So the people don't call themselves Assyrians; they just call themselves Syrians.
No, they're two different places. No, Assyrians still call themselves Assyrians. I actually know some Assyrian Christians, and that's how they refer to themselves. But yeah, Syrian is more. We hear about that more because there's an ongoing conflict in Syria, and oftentimes Syria and Israel, because they border one another, there's issues that develop there as well.
Tony and Bobby, anything to add to that?
No, that's it. That was good.
All right, then.
I would just say that when language about cutting off, that it's good the way that Brian explained that, because you'll even see the same thing as it relates to, the Canaanites when they kind of went in and Joshua and the military people, we're going to wipe them out. And, they were utterly wiped out. And then, you find out some of them weren't utterly wiped out. And so you'll hear a lot of exaggerative language sometimes that takes place. And we do the same thing in sports, for example. Like they just crushed them. Well, they didn't crush them, but we know what they meant. And so it's just understanding the usage of language. And there's about 5 million Assyrians today, people who would identify as Assyrians, as direct descendants from ancient Assyria and Babylon, which obviously started coming undone in the 6th and 7th centuries BC.
Speaking of crushing, Tony, did you watch the finals of the NCAA? NCAA?
Total crushing. That was a great way to put it.
Yes.
A total crushing.
Now, were you happy to see that crushing? Were you voting for the?
Well, I wanted to see Gonzaga. I wanted to see them run the table. It has not been done since 1976 with Bobby Knight and Indiana Hoosiers, and so I wanted to see someone do it. Kentucky came close in 2015, and they fell short. So different teams have come short, and I wanted to see Gonzaga run the table because it hasn't been done since 76.
Run the table means going undefeated?
Go
Okay.
undefeated. And then not only go undefeated during the regular season, but then win the championship as well.
So they were undefeated all the way until the final game.
Till Monday. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, Baylor would have been undefeated if it had not been for COVID. COVID protocols came in. They had to miss several games. And then when they came back, they were not the same. And a couple of teams beat them. But during the tournament, they showed what kind of team they were. And so it really should have been two undefeated teams going against each other. And Baylor showed that they were superior from the time the ball tipped off.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I heard it. I read some stuff on Twitter, and some of the stuff I was reading, it was kind of like they framed it in the Baptist and the Catholics. It was a kind of a religious battle.
Wow.
This was all tongue in cheek. It was all in good spirit.
Of course.
Like in Ireland when it was the Protestants versus the Catholics.
Well, yeah, something like that. Yeah. But that was ugly. So
yes, it was.
Wasn't bad.
All right, the phone number to call is 888-564-6173, and it's just about time for our break, so we'll get back to more calls in a moment. The number again is 888-564-6173. I'm Brian Perez, and this is Pastor's Perspective. We're here every weekday from 3 to 4 p.m. Pacific time to answer your calls about the Bible, the Christian faith, how to live out the Christian life. 888-564-6173 is the number. Answering your questions today are Pastors Brian Brodersen, Tony Clark, and Dr. Bobby Conway. The number once again is 888-564-6173. Back in a little bit.
Pastor's Perspective continues in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Pastor's Perspective continues with your question to 1-888-564-6173. And now here again is your host, Brian Perez.
888-564-6173 is that telephone number again, 888-564-6173. And answering your questions today are Brian Brodersen, Bobby Conway, and Tony Clark. You guys ready for more?
Yes.
Yes, let's do it.
Hey, I wanted to tell you guys, I told Brian during the break, I had probably a half a dozen people this weekend tell me how much this program means to them and how God's used it really powerfully in their lives. So it's just great news. And
yeah.
you guys are doing a great job.
I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, thank you. You too, bub.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
888-564-6173. Let's go to Happy Haley with a question about Hezekiah. Hello, Haley. How are you?
Hey, you guys. Thank you so much for taking my call. And also, super fast, the guy I was telling you about, God is definitely telling me he's not for me, as a husband. So I'm just next. So, yeah, don't even have to worry about that now. And next year will be 7 years of me being single. And there's they say the number 7 is a number of completion. So you never know. God might send me a husband, in the church in Florida. So, yeah, I just want to get that out there. I'm Pastor Brian. I was backsliding a tiny bit with reading my Bible, so hopefully I'm not too far behind you in your reading, but I'm in 2 Kings, Hezekiah. And I think I understand what's happening, but every time I assume I'm always wrong. So I just want to really double check here with you guys. Is Hezekiah being tested kind of like how Jesus tested the Sumerian woman, with her faith? Because, the prophet Isaiah told Hezekiah, that the Lord said he was for sure going to die, but then he cried out, and then God, he didn't, change his mind per se, but he, granted him 15 years of extra life. So I'm just wondering, was this, kind of a test, or is there, another meaning that maybe I looked over?
What do you think, Brian?
Well, I don't know, Haley. I've always just thought of it as, one of those things where God had compassion on Hezekiah, and he received the news, and it says he turned his face to the wall, and he wept, and he cried out to the Lord, and before Isaiah could leave the area, the palace area, the Lord spoke to him and said, go back and tell Hezekiah that I'm going to extend his life. So just why it happened that way, I don't really know. But as you keep reading the story, you find that he was tested, and that test came when the Babylonians came to visit him, and he took them and showed them all of the treasures of his kingdom and all of that, and actually was a little prideful about his greatness and his success. That's where he was tested, and that's where he failed that test in a bit. So
okay,
and he refers to that in I think it's maybe in Chronicles, where it kind of Kings doesn't give you all of the details. I think Second Chronicles gives you more detail of the account, so you get in there his failure at that point.
Tony, did you have any insight on Hezekiah?
Yeah, Hezekiah, to me, and I've taught it, a couple of times, is that's an example of God's permissive will over his perfect will. God's perfect will was for Hezekiah to die. He turned his face to the wall, and the way the Hebrew reads is he chirped like a bird to God. He was, please let me live, please let me live, I want to live long. And then before Isaiah could leave the courtyard, God said, go back, let him know, I give him 15 more years. But here's the thing that's so amazing is that if when you line everything up, it is believed that it was during that 15 years that Manasseh was conceived. and Manasseh ruled for 55 years, and he was the most wicked king that they have ever had. And so had he just died, which is God's perfect will, and not asked for those additional 15 years, Manasseh may not have been here and would not have taken Israel into such a low point in a spiritual way. And so that's just speculation. But we do know Manasseh reigned 55 years and he was wicked. And it is believed he was conceived during that time.
He was conceived in the 12th year. And I'm going to shoot a hole right in that theory that you just put out there. Because remember that the greatest of all the Judean kings was Josiah. And Josiah was the grandson of Manasseh. So if you don't have Manasseh, you don't have Josiah. And Josiah was prophesied way, way back. Remember when the prophet was sent from Judah to Israel to prophesy against Jeroboam. And they prophesied then that a child named Josiah would be born and he would burn the bones of these kings on these altars. And so I preached that same thing, Tony. And then I thought, wait a second. If you don't have Manasseh, you don't have Josiah. So maybe we just don't know exactly all these details.
Yes, that's true. And that's definitely could be, definitely true. God being merciful upon that wicked line of Manasseh, and God said, "Let me give them this king." Josiah.
And the crazy thing about Manasseh, and of course Manasseh was, he kind of he put the nail in the coffin through his wickedness, and his son Ammon followed right in his steps. But then his grandson Josiah is the one who turns everything around. But the crazy thing, remember, what's his name? Manasseh. Manasseh is led captive into Assyria, and he repents in Assyria. And he comes back, and he's changed. And he tries to make reforms, but the people are too far gone at this point. So any of his reforms just don't really, accomplish much.
So, Haley, thank you so much for calling us today on Pastor's Perspective, and good news to hear about that guy that was in your life that is no longer in your life. So that's good. That's following.
You want to just, you want to wait for God's best.
Yep. 888-564-6173. We'll go now to Tanner in Temecula with a Bible verse that made you stumble. Is that what it says here on the screen? What happened, Tanner?
Yes, so, dealing with Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, different cults over the years, I'm dealing with a new kind of emergent sort of, doctrine from the, the Hebrew Israelite thing that's kind of new on the scene, and just kind of dealing with that and not really seeing a lot of resources out there on this since it's so new. And I'm kind of just, lost some brothers to this particular movement.
Wow.
And brothers that I'm a old Calvary Chapel Bible College guy and was there and, even made Brian's bed a couple times in housekeeping. So, just trying to win my brothers back. And he was there back in 2016. But, just dealing with this new, Hebrew, the Hebrew Israelite, sort of doctrine, that the blacks are the real Jews and all this sort of thing. And they, and so one particular doctrine of theirs is, this is one of their scripture, their proof texts to show us believers that, it's eating pork is a sin. And so this is just a verse that, is kind of stumbling me right now. And
okay, and this is Isaiah 66, verses 15 through 17. Bobby, didn't you do an interview with somebody from the Black Hebrew Israelite movement on your 1 Minute Apologist?
I did.
Yeah.
There's some videos that we've done. Vocab Malone is his name. And I bet Tony is probably familiar with Vocab as well, because some of his connections with Adam Coleman. So Vocab definitely does a lot as it relates to this. So as far as these verses go, look at verses 15 and 16 here, and just it seems to be talking about how the Lord's coming is going to be, swift. It's going to happen quick. For by fire will the Lord enter into judgment, and by a sword with all flesh, and those slain by the Lord will be many. And so it's talking about judgment at the end, and God is going to be, magnified through the judgment. It's going to come speedily. Verse 17 seems to be the verse that you were referring to. So let me read that. It says, "Those who sanctify and purify themselves to go into the gardens, following one in the midst, eating pig's flesh and the abomination and mice, shall come to an end together, declares the Lord." So I guess, I just throw it out. Maybe what exactly is the question that we're struggling with here? And maybe Brian or Tony, what he's asking, and feel free to jump in there. I just want to know what the question is.
I want Tony to jump in on this because I know he knows about it. But I think it's the issue. It seems to me like it's the eating of the pig's flesh, or the condemning of the eating of the pig's flesh. But that, of course, was that the Israelites were not to eat pork, but that was, pig. But that was for the Israelites. So Jews today don't eat pork. So I don't know how that's any kind of a proof text for the Hebrew Israelites that they somehow, okay, fine, just go join the Orthodox Jews there in New York City. They're not doing that either. But that doesn't mean they're right. So Tony, what do you say?
Yeah, you're most definitely right. That this verse shows nothing. And if you notice, the Hebrew Israelites, they will always derive their proof text from the Old Testament, from Deuteronomy and isolated texts like this. And I don't know how, folks can get all wrapped up, and get all twisted up with that, eating pig's flesh. Okay, the Bible is clear. 1 Corinthians 8:8 says, "Food does not commend us to God, for if we eat, are we the better? Or if we don't eat, are we the worse?" It's very clear. Food, I told our church several times, I said, look here. I said, eating pork doesn't make you holier. It makes you healthier. It doesn't make you holy because you sit around and say, I don't eat pork. So what? You don't eat pork. The Bible said, let every man be persuaded in his own mind. One man thinks he ought to eat vegetables. Some men think he can eat meat. And he said, let every man be persuaded in his own mind. So, and then 1 Timothy 4, verses 1-5 lets us know that we can eat whatever we want. We can, as long as we give thanks to God for it, and we're good. So all those dietary laws that were strictly for the Jewish people, we can follow them. It'll make us healthier, but it won't make us holier. It doesn't draw us to God, not one bit.
That's good.
And it won't make us happier because, if you can't eat bacon, you're not happy.
Yeah, life is miserable without bacon.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
It is, absolutely.
Saturday morning waffles and crispy bacon with my grandkids. It's like there's nothing like it,
Yes, it's a bit of heaven.
My granddaughter's asking me, Grandpa, do you like waffles or bacon better? And I said, honey, it's just, you got to have them both. It's just the combo,
Yeah, that's really important that you bring that together into a nexus relationship.
Yes, with tons of maple syrup on it. It's just amazing.
Tanner, thanks for your question today on Pastor's Perspective at 888-564-6173.
Hey, you guys I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, but you know who Dr. Eric Mason is, right? You guys know Eric in Philly. So he's got a new book coming out. I think it's just about to come out maybe this week, called Urban Apologetics. And I think he's dealing with a lot of this, Hebrew Israelite stuff and, of course, the black Muslims and different things that are, people are facing in the urban context. So I think it's going to be a great book. I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matter of fact, the guy that comes to our church, Adam Coleman, he did a chapter in the book, with
great.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have the book on audio book, and I'm waiting to get through what's his name? The Color Compromise.
Yeah.
His second his second book I'm listening to on audiobook in my car. And
How
once
to
I'm
How
done
to Fight
with
Racism. How to Fight
Racism.
What do you think? Do you like it?
Yeah.
You think it's good?
Really good. Yes, very good. And I was like, okay. I like the color compromise better so far, but this one, I'm about halfway through it. How to Fight Racism. Very, very good, practical. Then some examples, and it's just, very good. Very good. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. I'm looking for those on Amazon so that we can put links up on our Facebook and YouTube. So those 2 books, Urban Apologetics, Restoring Black Dignity with the Gospel. That just came out today, in fact, and it is by Eric Mason, Ericmason. The other book is How to Fight Racism, Courageous Christianity, and the Journey Toward Racial Justice. That one by Jamar Tisby, Jemartisby.
Now, Brian, let me just add to that, because this Friday on this program, Aaron Campbell's going to be with us. I didn't.
Right.
Did you know that?
I did, but I forgot.
Okay.
But thank you.
I'm
It's already
reminding you.
April. Yes.
Okay. So Aaron's going to be with us, and Aaron has written a book called Eyes That Seen Plenty. It's his story of growing up basically in the hood of New Jersey and doing life and ministry in the heart of Philadelphia. And it's a fascinating story. And that's the old version right there. There's a brand new, there's an updated version that we published. It's see the little one next to it? Yeah.
This one here, yes.
Yeah. So Aaron's going to be on with us, and we're going to talk about his book on Friday. So just so our listeners know what to get ready for on Friday.
Think we'll take phone calls?
Maybe.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll definitely discuss the first half and then probably open it up second.
All right.
Yeah,
so
Janice read the book and said it was just incredible.
Yeah,
incredible book.
It is so good. I read it a couple of years ago, and we updated it since then and expanded it. But man, it was like a page turner. I couldn't put it down.
Yeah,
I was up till
Janice said the same thing.
3 a.m. reading it. Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
And this book, the audio book, was recorded here in our studios.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's
Aaron
cool.
was here for about a week or so, and that's what he did. All right, so that's this Friday. Aaron Campbell will be on the program with us. His book is called Eyes That Seen Plenty. 888-564-6173 is our telephone number. Let's see how many more of these questions we can get to before the program ends. And if we don't get to your call today, call us tomorrow. We'll be here same time, 3 to 4 p.m. Pacific time. Agosa wants to know how a Christian can have a practical faith instead of a progressive faith. Right, Agosa?
Yes, but also, how should we avoid being overly fundamentalist as well?
Ah, okay.
Give us just a little bit of an example of what you mean, Agosa, practical versus progressive. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I meant to say was, how do I draw the line in terms of being realistic in my faith, biblically realistic in my faith, without going the fundamentalist route, which means how my faith is better than yours, or a progressive Christian who thinks that he or she can love God but still continue to hold on to the sins.
Well, I want to hear what Bobby has to say about that.
Let's hear it, Bobby.
Well, I mean, it's not so much about whether, we have a progressive faith or maybe a traditional faith. We want to have a biblical faith. And so what does the word faith mean? Well, it comes from the Greek word pisteuo, and it means to trust. And so as a Christian, we have to trust in Jesus. And the problem with the progressive church is they scrub down a lot of the theology of the Bible. Basically, what you end up with progressive Christianity is it looks like God created God in our image from the Bible, but then it looks like they returned the favor and created God in their image. And the God that they've created is a God that's not going to judge, a God that's going to be all about free sex, a God that's okay with same-sex marriage, a God that doesn't value the atonement, a God who'd never subject his son Jesus to dying on a cross, a God that would never ask you to deny yourself, but rather you to offer, you're to be fulfilled, you're to do what you need to do. And so the problem with that is that just reduces the Bible down to creating it something that looks a lot like culture today and culture's desires and culture's emotions. And so that's going to go antithetical. It's going to go directly against having a living, vibrant faith. And so when you want to get the best look at faith, we can look at the followers of Jesus. And what you see early on is the believers were dying for their beliefs in Jesus. They believed in a creedal faith, and Christianity's always been a creedal faith, and that's the problem with progressive Christianity. They minimize the creedal faith that we hold to. And so you look at the early apologists in the first couple hundred years of church history. I mean, they're vociferously defending the Christian faith against heretics. And you had, they were passionately going after how to protect the purity of Christ. And you had, you had these different councils that were taking place, like in 431 at Ephesus, or in 451 at Chalcedon, or in 325 at Nicaea, or the Second Nicene Council, which was basically at Constantinople in 381. And so they were warding off false teachings that wanted to come along and say, oh, Jesus is two persons. He's not one person with two natures. Or others would say, oh, he only got one nature. Or others would say he only looks like he's God, but he's man. Or he only looks like he's man, but he's God. And so they would fight like crazy to preserve the Christian truth of what it is they believed in Jesus. And there was blood that was shed throughout history in the name of preserving the Christian faith. So now today, we just want a soft, diluted, palatable gospel. And so what we need to do is we need to go back to the Gospels. We need to go back to the Bible. We need to understand what the Apostles' Creed is. We need to understand the faith that was given once and for all and be willing to live for it. We need more bold Christianity today. And too bad, because what we're experiencing, progressive Christianity, is rooted in a desire to make everything digestible and safe and feeling good and no judgment. And that's just not the gospel you see throughout church history.
Can I ask something really quick? When you say, Bobby, that we need bold Christianity, does that mean in-your-face Christianity? And I think Agosa kind of alluded to this in his question, the whole my faith is better than your faith and just getting in people's faces and pointing the finger, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Is that how we're supposed to, where's that line?
Well, I don't think we need to be, arrogant and condescending and be annoying as people. But by bold, I mean, let's just face it. We have got a crisis in the church. We have gone missionally mute. We are, look, everybody's out of the closet, but the Christian has been run into the closet. And it's time for the Christian to come out of the closet and recognize I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it's the power unto God. And so everybody else is freely sharing what they believe and why they believe it. And they want you to fall in line. And while I believe we have been love shamed, like in other words, there's so much love shaming, like where now you got so many people, it's always, I don't want people to think I'm being unloving. It's like, man, I don't know that I've ever met a Christian that didn't agree that we should be loving to the homosexual community. But that's our narrative because we've been so love shamed that we don't love. So we just believe that. But really, it just means be quiet about what you believe. Go missionally mute. And you know what? We've done that. And so Satan has used the Achilles heel, man, like to get us is, we don't want to come across unloving. And if unloving means that I shouldn't speak, then I'll go quiet and I'll go mum. And that's what we've done.
Tony, Brian, anything to add in our closing minutes?
Amen.
All right. So thanks for your phone call, Agosa.
But, I mean, it's true. I think, these two things are not. It's not necessarily that you're going to be one or the other. And I think that's what we need to recognize here. It's not either I'm progressive or I'm obnoxious. It's no, I'm going to be biblical, I'm going to be bold, but I'm going to be humble.
That's right.
And and I'm going to be loving. But, loving and humble doesn't exclude boldness. It doesn't exclude courage. Jesus was the most loving and the most humble person, but he certainly said things that people did not like.
That's
exactly we have to do the same.
Yeah.
All right, that's all the time we have on today's program. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, 3 to 4 p.m. Pacific time. If we didn't get to your call today, so sorry. Try again tomorrow. Phone lines open about 7 minutes before the program begins. So for Pastor Brian Brodersen and Dr. Bobby Conway and Pastor Tony Clark, I am Brian Perez. Thank you for listening. Good night and God bless. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Pastor's Perspective. We trust you've been blessed and had your question answered. Join us Monday through Friday and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/pastorsperspective. The preceding was sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, California.